6 feet below your foundation, the ground holds at 55 degrees. In January or July, it does not matter. NOAA has confirmed this across thousands of stations. Greeks, Romans, and Persians engineered buildings around this fact 2,000 years ago. Today, tapping that same underground reservoir costs roughly $30 per square foot. No furnace, no compressor, no monthly energy bill. Yet a $250 billion industry convinced the modern world it still needs mechanical climate control. The science behind why mechanical climate control is unnecessary starts right beneath your feet. NOAA's soil temperature network spans more than 800 stations across the United States. Their long-term records show a pattern that holds steady regardless of season or surface weather. At a depth of 6 to 10 feet, the ground rarely strays outside a narrow band, typically between 48 and 62 degrees Fahrenheit. In Minnesota, where winter air can plunge below zero, the 6-foot soil temperature remains above 45 degrees Fahrenheit. In the desert heat of Arizona, that same depth seldom exceeds 65 degrees Fahrenheit. The U.S. Department of Energy has published these figures for decades, confirming that, just 6 feet down, the ground sits at about 55 degrees Fahrenheit, give or take a few degrees depending on the region. The Department of Energy's fact sheets for ground source heat pumps cite a steady 55 degrees Fahrenheit at 6 feet and a range of 50 to 59 degrees Fahrenheit at 30 feet. Peer-reviewed research and grassroots guides echo these numbers, showing remarkable agreement between government data, academic studies, and field measurements. Even independent modeling tools like Greencast reproduce this national band. Soil at 2 meters deep, from the coldest Midwest to the warmest desert, stays within 10 degrees of that 55 degrees Fahrenheit average. This is not a local fluke. The science behind it is simple. Above 6 feet, the ground acts as a giant thermal battery, slow to absorb or release heat. Seasonal swings at the surface fade away as you go deeper, until by 10 feet, the annual temperature curve flattens into a stable baseline. Across all USDA hardiness zones from Maine to California, that baseline forms a hidden reservoir of low-grade energy waiting just beneath the surface. The numbers are not theoretical. They are measured, logged, and published year after year across thousands of sites. The consistency of the data is striking. Whether in clay, sand, or loam, the underground temperature at 6 to 10 feet provides a reliable anchor, one that ancient builders and modern engineers have both tried to harness. The next step is understanding how this steady reservoir can be tapped for practical comfort and why, with evidence so clear, it remains largely ignored in mainstream construction. A few feet below the surface, the rules of temperature are nothing like what we experience above ground. Here, the Earth acts as a slow-moving filter for heat, a massive silent regulator that smooths out every spike and dip in the weather. The explanation is not magic, but physics. Heat moves through soil by diffusion, a process governed by the same equation that describes how a drop of ink spreads in water. At the surface, temperatures swing wildly from day to night and season to season. As heat tries to travel downward, its energy gets absorbed, scattered, and diluted by the dense, moist earth. The deeper you go, the less of that surface chaos survives. Scientists use the term diffusion length to describe how far a temperature wave can penetrate before it fades away. For the annual cycle, the difference between July and January, that length is about 10 meters, or roughly 33 feet. By the time you reach 6 feet down, daily swings are already erased. Only the slow, gentle pulse of the seasons remains, and even that is muted to a whisper. At 10 feet, the annual temperature wave is so weak that the ground barely notices winter or summer at all. The numbers are clear. At 2 meters, the soil's temperature is a rolling average of the past year's weather, not the latest cold snap or heat wave. The further down you go, the more stable it becomes. This explains why, whether you are in Minnesota or Arizona, the ground at 6 to 10 feet holds steady within a narrow band, usually between 48 and 62 degrees Fahrenheit. The decay is so sharp that a winter blizzard or a summer scorcher at the surface has almost no effect below this zone. This hidden stability is why later designs like earth tube ventilation and thermal mass walls can work at all. They rely on the Earth's reluctance to change, its ability to buffer against the chaos above. The diffusion equation has been solved and measured for over a century, so the math is not a secret. Yet despite how simple and predictable this mechanism is, it remains a curiosity in most modern housing. The physics are settled, the ground is a giant, natural thermostat. The real puzzle is why so few buildings are designed to use it. In the 4th century BC, Xenophon recorded a conversation with Socrates that reads like an ancient blueprint for comfort. Socrates, ever practical, advised that a well-designed house should face south. In the winter, the low sun would pour warmth into the rooms, while in the summer, a deep roof or portico would shield the interior from the harsh midday rays. The idea was simple: let the sun in when you need it, keep it out when you do not. Xenophon's text, the Memorabilia, spells it out plainly: houses that look to the sun in winter and turn their backs to the cold north wind stay warmer, with no extra firewood or fuel. This was not a metaphor or a philosophical flourish. It was a matter of fact instruction grounded in the everyday experience of Athenian builders and homeowners. South-facing homes became a hallmark of Greek domestic design, not because of any grand theory, but because the results spoke for themselves. Long before anyone spoke of insulation or R values, orientation alone could tip the balance between a chilly, dark interior and a sunlit, livable space. The principle required no machinery, no ongoing cost, just an understanding of where the sun would be each season. That core insight, captured in a line of ancient Greek, is as relevant to passive design today as it was 24 centuries ago. Roman engineers took the idea of thermal mass to a level the world had never seen. In the heart of the empire, the baths of Caracalla stood as a marvel of comfort and scale. Completed in 216 CE, these baths covered over 10,000 square meters of heated floor, more than 2 football fields, and they used a system that did not rely on a furnace in every room. Instead, the Romans built the Hypocaust, a network of brick pillars supporting a raised floor, with hot air from a wood-fired furnace circulating in the space below. As the air moved through the channels, it warmed the thick masonry above, turning the entire floor into a radiant heat source. Archaeological reconstructions and modern measurements show that the floors in the main bathing halls reached 80 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit during the winter months. The heat continued up through flues in the walls, creating a gentle, even warmth throughout massive stone chambers. No single fireplace could have achieved this. The Hypocaust transformed the building itself into a giant thermal battery, storing energy and releasing it slowly, long after the fires died down. Unlike the Greek approach, which relied on sunlight, the Romans harnessed engineered mass and controlled airflow. The design did not just heat a room, it heated thousands of square meters at once with a single centralized system. The scale and efficiency of the Hypocaust set a standard that would not be matched for centuries, and it proved that comfortable interiors could be achieved without the need for mechanical heating in every occupied space. The principle remains the same in today's passive systems. Use the building's own mass to smooth out temperature swings, and comfort follows naturally. On the sun-baked plains of central Iran, ancient builders developed a structure that could outsmart the desert heat, the Yakhchal. Rising above the horizon like a giant beehive, each Yakhchal shelters a deep domed chamber carved into the earth, its walls nearly 6 feet thick and coated with a special waterproof mortar known as sarouj. This blend of lime, sand, clay, ash, and a touch of organic binder, sometimes egg white or milk, forms a barrier that resists moisture and blocks the relentless sun. The engineering goes deeper than appearance. Below ground, the chamber plunges 3 to 5 meters surrounded by earth that acts as a thermal shield. Even as summer temperatures in Yazd or Kerman soar past 110 degrees Fahrenheit, the air inside a Yakhchal hovers around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to preserve ice harvested in winter or to keep food fresh through the hottest months. Field measurements in Yazd confirm these numbers. While the desert surface bakes, the chamber stays chilly, with nighttime readings as low as 42 degrees Fahrenheit. The secret is not just in the walls. A shallow pool, stretching 100 meters beside the dome, uses evaporative cooling to freeze water on clear winter nights. Once the ice is stored inside, the thick saruji-coated shell and the Earth's natural inertia slow the return of heat to a crawl. Over centuries, this passive system kept entire communities supplied with ice and cool storage, no fans, no compressors, just clever use of mass and earth. The Yakhchal stands as proof that, long before modern HVAC, it was possible to create a stable, low-cost refuge from extreme temperatures using only the ground beneath our feet and materials at hand. In a quiet laboratory at the University of Bath, a team of researchers set out to measure what ancient builders only guessed at: how much heat a wall can actually hold, and how slowly it lets that heat slip away. They built a test cell with a rammed earth wall, 0.6 meters thick, facing south. Heat flux sensors lined the surface, tracking the movement of energy from sunlight into the dense earth and then back out again. The data told a clear story. After a bright winter day, the highest temperatures inside the wall did not arrive until nearly 15 hours after the sun had set. Instead of a sharp spike and drop, the wall's mass stretched the warmth into the night, flattening the curve of indoor temperature swings. Over the course of a year, the Bath team found that this single wall could keep the interior air within 5 degrees Fahrenheit of the steady ground temperature for most of the time, about 70% of the year, without any mechanical heating or cooling. The wall's specific heat storage, measured at around 125 kilojoules per square meter per degree Celsius, was enough to offset the typical nighttime cooling load for a modest home facade. These results turned ancient intuition into hard numbers. Thermal mass does not just moderate temperature, it sets the pace of comfort, holding onto energy long after the weather outside has changed. The findings laid the groundwork for modern passive systems, showing that with the right materials and orientation, a building can ride out the extremes of day and night on little more than the inertia of its own walls. In 1956, a French engineer named Félix Trombe took the ancient logic of sun and mass and gave it a modern twist. His design was simple: a thick, dark wall, usually concrete or masonry, facing south, positioned just behind a layer of glass. Sunlight streams through the glass, heats the wall, and that energy seeps slowly into the interior over hours, not minutes. The result is a house that soaks up the day's warmth and releases it long after sunset, smoothing out temperature swings without a furnace running in the background. The original patent data is striking. Field tests from the late 1950s and early 1960s showed that a trombe wall could supply between 60 and 75% of a home's winter heating needs in a typical temperate climate. In practice, that meant a drastic cut in fuel use, sometimes more than half, without any moving parts or complex controls. The wall's mass acted like a battery, storing solar energy and letting it trickle into living spaces as the air cooled outside. Vents at the top and bottom allowed warm air to flow in at night, while closing them during the day trapped heat in the wall. Materials costs were modest: glass, concrete, a bit of framing. The concept could be added to new builds or retrofitted onto existing homes, making it accessible to ordinary homeowners. The core idea, using a sun-facing glazed mass to harvest and store free heat, became a blueprint for later passive solar designs. The numbers from those early houses still hold up. A well-built trombe wall sized for the space and climate can cut the need for mechanical heating by 2/3 or more, all for less than the price of a single month's energy bill in a typical American winter. This system, proven by decades of data, remains one of the most affordable ways to tap into the Earth's steady warmth and the sun's daily cycle. On the outskirts of Taos, New Mexico, Michael Reynolds set out to prove that comfort and efficiency could be built from the ground up. His Earthship homes, assembled from earth-packed tires and glass, challenged every convention. Instead of furnaces or air conditioners, these houses rely on passive solar design and a simple earth tube system, a 150-foot duct buried 6 feet underground, quietly exchanging air with the stable earth below. Inspectors called it unorthodox. Reynolds called it evidence. Years of data from these homes reveal a steady interior climate, even as winter nights drop to minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit and summer days soar past 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside, temperatures hold between 65 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit in winter, rarely exceeding 75 degrees Fahrenheit in summer. The earth tube alone delivers a 4 to 5 degree lift to incoming air, enough to keep the balance in a well-insulated shell. The hardware and installation cost just $1.70 per square foot, and Reynolds logs show a coefficient of performance between 8 and 12. For every unit of electricity spent on the fan, the system delivers 8 to 12 units of heating or cooling effect. For under $30 per square foot, including earth tube, tire walls, and greenhouse, these homes rival modern HVAC systems. Yet building codes and industry standards rarely accommodate such straightforward solutions. The Earthship stands as a living case study, showing what is possible and what still stands in the way. The numbers behind the heating and cooling industry tell a story that rarely makes it into discussions of home design. Globally, HVAC systems account for more than $240 billion in annual sales. In the United States alone, residential heating represents over $60 billion each year. Money flows through manufacturers, installers, and service contracts. Groups like ASHRAE and the Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute serve as the industry's official voice, shaping standards and public policy. With this much revenue on the line, every new home built with a furnace or air conditioner is another link in a vast economic chain. The sheer weight of these figures explains why the market gravitates toward mechanical solutions, even when passive options could deliver similar comfort for a fraction of the cost. The industry's size is not just a backdrop, it is a gravitational force that pulls building practices, codes, and expectations into its orbit. Local building codes do not just suggest a furnace, they often demand it. The International Residential Code, adopted in most U.S. states, requires every new home to include a heating system capable of delivering at least 30 BTUs per square foot. This rule is written directly into the codebook, regardless of how well the house holds heat or how much thermal mass and solar gain it can capture. Code councils argue that this baseline guarantees safety and comfort during cold snaps. The effect is clear. Even a perfectly insulated, earth-coupled home must install a furnace sized for worst-case conditions. The result is a system where mechanical equipment is not just an option, but a legal requirement. This prescriptive approach makes it nearly impossible for passive designs to stand on their own, locking builders and homeowners into a cycle of buying, installing, and maintaining equipment that the building might never truly need. Mortgage underwriters and appraisers hold the keys to what a house is worth, but their formulas rarely see beyond square footage and finishes. The Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice, known as USPAP, offer no clear way to value a home that slashes utility bills through passive design. As a result, homes built to stay comfortable with earth coupling or thermal mass are often valued 5 to 10% lower than their conventional neighbors, despite offering far lower monthly costs. Most lenders ignore energy independence, sticking to standard loan products with no green incentives. Even when a passive house can prove its energy savings, the appraisal comes back as if those savings do not exist, locking buyers out of better financing and leaving the real value of these homes invisible in the market. Today, most homes remain tethered to a $240 billion HVAC industry, while proven passive strategies sit on the sidelines dismissed by codes and profit-driven inertia. The barrier isn't technical, it's economic and systemic. As energy costs rise and climate risks intensify, the question isn't what works. It's who benefits when simple answers stay buried. Sometimes the cheapest solution is the one we're encouraged to forget. What would you change if the choice was yours?